This NFL Conference Championship Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
It as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf for the touchdown.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And then there were four. Down to the conference championships happening on Sunday. NFC leads it off at 3 p.m. Eastern, and then we'll have the nightcap AFC Championship game between the Bills and the Chiefs. We'll briefly look back from last week, I should say, to what we saw in the playoffs. And, of course, we'll give you our player props for this weekend, touchdown scores, honorable mentions. You guys already know how we do it here, and hopefully we can find some more winners on this episode. But joining me, the man is painted maroon. He's donning the Jaden Daniels jersey. It's a new era for Commanders fans looking to shock the world to get to the Super Bowl. I got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, how are you feeling, my man?
Feeling good, feeling really, really good, man. ChrisBeCappinn is what we're going to change the name to. But yeah, feeling good. It's a beautiful Friday. We got two really good games to jump into, and it's that time, man. We've been doing pretty good, so hopefully we can keep cashing, and hopefully my Commanders can keep winning, man. But excited to be here as always to talk some NFL player props, like you said, championship style this week,
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, man. I'm excited for you. I know I have a couple other Commanders fans around the SGPN part, so definitely exciting times if you are a Commanders fan. We'll get into that, of course, and we'll get Chris's take on the game towards the end of the episode. I'll get his thoughts and his picks. But yeah, look, last week, I think we had a pretty good podcast. I know we gave out a lot of winners, got there to with some touchdown scores there as well. So we've been doing pretty well this season. Hopefully we can carry that into the conference championships and then eventually the big game happening in New Orleans in a couple weeks. But unfortunately, my Texans did go down. It's a little difficult, Chris. I've mentioned this on several pods this week, that when you're paying about 17 on 11 out there, it's a little difficult for you to win. Some questionable calls going against you. But it is what it is, right? We know Patrick Mahomes right now, the face of the NFL, but give him credit for getting the job done. Now having to face the Buffalo Bills against the Bills and the Chiefs on Sunday in the nightcap game, like I mentioned, for the AFC title game. So it should be a lot of fun for this weekend. Anything you want to mention from last weekend, Chris, before we do jump into the props here for conference championships?
No, I think we could we won't have to do too much of a recap. Like you said, we had a pretty successful show. Hopefully we can just kind of keep rolling it over, just keep rolling it over.
Yeah, let's get into it here, man. We'll get into our player props here, and then, like I mentioned, honorable mentions and the touchdown scores. Chris, I'll let you lead off. Player prop number one, where are you taking us?
Man, I'm going to a place that we've been before, a place where we've gotten a lot of cash, and we got some cash last week cashing this play as well. Going right back to the well, it is Jalen Hurts under on his pass attempts here. Number is down one attempt, but that's not enough to scare me off. It was 25.5 last week. It's 24.5 this week. You can find this on a bunch of different sports books. Not too juice yet. So we look at, Jalen Hurts, and a large part of the handicap is what it was last week as well. And what it has been throughout the entirety of this season is that Jalen Hurts, this is a team that doesn't really rely too much on Jalen Hurts. If you got a quarterback that has went under this number in 12 and only 2 of its last 12 games, so 60% hit rate, or you could say 84% not hit rate, and I'm betting on him not to get to 25 pass attempts here. Last 5 games, he's only gone up and over 1. He's averaging below 20 attempts per game. So he's under in 4 of his last 5. Like I said, 2 of his last 12 he's gone under, and it reflects, like I said, the Eagles' offensive strategy, which is leaning into the run, giving the ball to Saquon, him dominating on the ground. The Commanders' rush defense is not great. We know that. They've been gashed a lot throughout the season, and we're expecting Saquon to be able to find some more success here. Jalen Hurts has, of course, faced the Commanders twice already this season because it's a divisional opponent for us, and he's averaging just 16 pass attempts in those 2 games as well, supporting the under a little bit more. Then you got the injury concern. We know Jalen Hurts is not going to be 100%. Pretty sure he's going to be out there, going to give it his best. They'll, drug him up and throw him out there. But I think that could, impact his mobility a little bit, his overall effectiveness as well as a passer. So I'm thinking that, this was already an offense that leaned into the run. I'm thinking they're going to lean into it even more to make the Commanders stack the box and figure out if they can actually beat them. From a game script perspective, of course, these teams have played a couple times this season. You got the Eagles, who opened, I think, up as a 4.5-point favorite, 4-point favorite. Now they're up to 6. So we are expecting the Commanders to be playing from behind here, which is going to lead to, to Jalen Hurts throwing the ball even less, which is exactly what we saw last week. So, we're going Jalen Hurts, under on his pass attempts here, under 24.5. Just kind of riding the hot streak with Jalen Hurts, thinking that not going to pass the ball 25 times. It'll be a very slow, methodical style game. His totals dropping from, I think, 49.5 down to 48.5, all indicative of what pace we think we'll see in this game here. So, official play, we're going Jalen Hurts under 24.5 pass attempts here.
Yeah, starting to see the total creep down to not even 47.5 in this game here. And I think it's what you mentioned, that you want to really ride the coattail of Saquon Barkley, who's done absolutely fantastic in the first 2 games of the postseason here for the Philadelphia Eagles. And also the defense has played well for this Eagles team. And now I know that Jalen Hurts is also dealing with a left knee injury. Maybe that's really impacting his mobility, whether it's with rushing yards, but also, it'll be interesting to see what the Commanders' defensive plan is in this game. Is that, do you try to stack the box and try to contain Saquon Barkley and make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm, or, how does that play out? I think that's what I'm most curious about in this game here between the Commanders and the Eagles. So, like you mentioned, right, not a whole lot of reliance on Jalen Hurts this postseason. Again, you can just tell that he's dealing with a left knee injury, maybe even more, because he's been very slow to get up, gingerly walking back to the sidelines and of that sort. So I'd be with you on this one here, Chris, for Jalen Hurts. Before I get into my first player prop here for the conference championship games, just want to mention, in honor of the big game, from now until February 9th, 15% off of everything in the SGPN merch store with promo code Big Game. Make sure you guys check out the NBA Gambling Podcast merch. If you want to check out the MMA Gambling Podcast, the Premier League Gambling Podcast, all the podcasts, a lot of great stuff, a lot of great novelty items up there as well. So right now is a good time to get over there. 15% off of everything in the SGPN merch store. Make sure you guys use our promo code Big Game. All right, Chris, for my first player prop here, I'm going with Josh Allen, the other quarterback on the AFC side for the Buffalo Bills. Looking at his rush attempts to go over in this game, the number is currently sitting at 9.5 for this particular game. And, when it comes down to it, when we talk about high leverage games, I think this is where Josh Allen really excels, for the Buffalo Bills. But in particular, if you take a look at what Josh Allen has done against the Chiefs, I'll start first in the regular season, Chris, as far as his rushing stats go. So they've played each other 5 times in the regular season, and he's had 10 or more rush attempts in 4 of those 5 games. The rushing yards have also been there for him as well. 42, 59, 32, 32, and 55. But the rush attempts, his first start against the Chiefs, he had 8. But since then, 11, 12, 10, and 12 in the regular season. And then we take a look at the 3 matchups in the playoffs, where unfortunately, if you're a Bills fan, they just haven't able to get over that hump yet against the Chiefs. But in those 3 games, Chris, 12 attempts was the most recent game last year in the divisional round, 11 a few years ago. And then back in 2021 in the AFC Championship game, he had 7 attempts in that game. But this really just comes down to me, Chris, about for Josh Allen's ability that he's going to, number one, we know he has the running ability, but in these type of situations where if the pass rush is going to get to him, I feel like he's going to utilize his legs. And who knows, at the end of the game, if they are in victory formation and they find a way to beat the Chiefs, those those kneel downs are also going to add up on the rush attempts here for Josh Allen. For what it's worth, I'll mention this as well. I've already also played his rushing yards to go over. 3 playoff games against the Chiefs, his rushing yards numbers have been 72, 68, and 80. And currently that number, the best number I found for Josh Allen on his rushing yards was sitting around 47.5. It's hovering around 48.5 consensus. But I do think this would be a big game for Josh Allen utilizing his legs against the Kansas City Chiefs here, Chris. So officially for the pod, over 9.5 rush attempts, but I also did play the over rushing yards for Josh Allen this week.
Yeah, you know what? This is actually something that I was going to mention during honorable mentions because I like Jalen Hurts a little bit more as far as quarterback goes. So I love that everything that you said. It was what I looked into as well. A lot of what you said is same thing I had in my notes, so I won't regurgitate all of that. But big time situation for Josh Allen. Pretty sure he's tired of being a little brother and watching Patrick Mahomes go from the AFC Championship to the Super Bowl, consecutive years after year after year. So yeah, I do think he stepped up in a big way. I could see Spagnuolo putting a little pressure on him, trying to make him very decisive with the football and not letting him stay back there in the pocket for too much. And if that's the case, we know that he'll take off and utilize his legs. So I like the yards as well, Munaf. I know that when they played earlier this season, I think he went up and over both the rush attempts and the yards in that game as well. So I like them both. Love your play here.
All right, Chris, take us over to player prop number 2, man. What do you got?
Hey, we're going back to Old Faithful again. If he's cash force the best bet last week. I think I played him the week before that as well. Mr. Austin Eckler up and over this longest reception here. It's hard not to just love what you see here. You look at Jaden Daniels pass attempts. He's sitting at like 33. Because we know what the Eagles can do against the rush. So it's a very similar game script to last week when you got a Detroit Lions team that's really, really good against the rush as well, and they want to make Jaden Daniels have to beat them, and that's what they were able to do last week. And I'm thinking also Eckler is going to continue to be a big recipient of that. He's been an elite. We know he's been elite. Just receiving option for them in totality. He's averaging the longest reception of 17.17, so a little over 17 yards per reception over his last 10 games, and 18.2 yards over his last 5 games. It's just so consistent, man. It's really, really difficult for me to want to bet against Austin Eckler, whether it's a dump down or a screenplay or something. They're going to try to get the ball to a veteran running back out in space so that he can make a play. And I think that continues him. If they cashed in the first quarter last week, I have no reason not to go back to it again. He's just been continuously cashing this number. I forgot what number I gave out last week, but I think it's something along the lines of maybe 8 of his 8 road games this season. He's had a reception of longer than 12.5 yards. So I'm going over on his receiving yard longest reception at 12.5. But I couldn't talk anybody off the yardage either, because last week he had the 1 catch and he was already over it for his yardage for the full game as well. So we'll go Austin Eckler up and over his 12.5 longest reception here again.
Yeah, I'm right here with you. I took the yardage to go over, and it's just correlated to what you mentioned about his longest reception to go over. And, he's done it in both of the playoff games thus far this season for Austin Eckler. Last week, he had a receiving yards number of 35. He had a receiving yard number of 26 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Current number right now, sitting at 24.5. And I know he played earlier this season against the Eagles in one game. I know he was injured for the second game when these two teams faced off against each other. But in that game, Chris, back on November 14th, 8 receptions, 9 targets for 89 receiving yards in that game for Austin Eckler. And even if you want to go back historically against the Eagles, when he was with the Chargers, he had 2 games against them where he had 23 each in those games. So just asking him to do a hair bit more. But if he's able to repeat what he did last week for the Commanders offense, I think that he could get up and over this number here. So I'm with you, Chris. I took Austin Eckler over 24.5. Maybe he would come back next week. We're talking about that. He had a long reception of 25, and we killed 2 birds with 1 stone here. So definitely love this one here for Austin Eckler. All right, before we get into our next player props for the conference championship games, we're talking about the playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here. That's 2 player props each from you and myself. Player prop number 3, my man, what do you got?
I apologize for not having anything in this this Kansas City and Buffalo game, but I'm just so locked in on Eagles and Commanders this week. We're going with something that's super correlated. So I'm prepared to go 2-0, and bring home a lot of cash, or I'm prepared to go 0-2 and chuck it up as a losing week. But it's super correlated with what I just said about Jalen Hurts. I'm going A.J. Brown under on his 4.5 receptions here. Number comes in, no juice attached at all, just the 10 cent that we pay to play, and I like it. A.J. Brown has I think it's a couple different things. First off, he's just not in really good form, and that doesn't mean that he can't come out here and dominate this game. But 3 straight games he's gone under. I'm looking back at those receptions, and this is with a target share of 23%. Like, he has the highest target share. Devontae Smith is second with 21%, but I'm looking back, and the targets just really haven't been there. There's been some frustration from him. He has his book on the sideline. It's an Amazon bestseller if you've been paying attention to all that stuff. But 7 targets last week, just 2 receptions. 3 targets 2 weeks ago, just 3 receptions. 5 targets the week before that, just 3 receptions. And it's correlated. If he's not going to get the targets, then you probably can't get the receptions. And I'm I'm looking. He only has 1 game in his last 3 where he's gone up and over the number. You go back to the last time that we played against this Philadelphia Eagles team, and he did finish with 5 targets. But that was also a game that the Eagles were playing from behind because Jalen Hurts was concussed in that game, and we were actually playing from in front. So you had an Eagles team that there wasn't really relying as much on the run. And trying to pass the ball a little bit more. So targets down. Like I said, under in 3 straight games. Hurts also is not completely healthy. We'll see what that knee, how much he can do on that knee, But if I'm thinking that he's going to go under on his completions and his attempts, because that's what I bet. But if I'm thinking he's going to go under on his attempts, then I think it's highly correlated with A.J. Brown to go under on his receptions. Not that he's not a great receiver, not that he can't dominate this Commanders defense, but don't look now. Commanders actually number 1, in receptions given up to wide receivers. And then last but not least, we just know it's going to be a bunch of turning around and handing off to Saquon. If you didn't mention it, but you didn't mention it today, but kudos to you. I mean, Saquon rush attempts at 20.5 last week. And you just see him just get the ball almost every single play, just waiting to break one. So I think it's all correlated. Saquon increased workload, Jalen Hurts not being 100%, targets being down for A.J. Brown. Can he, absolutely have an explosive game? Yes, which is why I stayed away from the receiving yards specifically, because he can catch a deep ball. We know how good he is. I think his longest reception is 22.5 yards, but I'll go under on his receptions, just thinking that the Eagles play the game the way that they want to play football, and that's smash mouth, hard-nosed football. Under 4.5 receptions for A.J. Brown for me in this one,
Yeah, I think the only part that would make me nervous about this is that he's had at least 5 catches in 4 straight head-to-head meetings, but also I think it has to do with the health of Jalen Hurts. That's the biggest wild card right now for this Eagles team. And Yeah, I think that if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. We've said that a lot of times. Our good friend Ski says that a lot as well. And, this season, unfortunately, the Commanders' rush defense has been one of the worst ones in the entire National Football League. And I think how you take advantage of that, right? You hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley and you let him rack up the yards. We saw him have a very successful game against them this season. He's had 2 great postseason games. So somebody is going to have to take a step back in the offense. And right now it seems like that it's going to be the wide receivers between Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And you brought up, the tight end position. Alex Goddard has been really good as well in the postseason thus far for this for this Eagles team. 47 receiving yards against the Packers, 56 against the Rams last week. So it almost seems like those Devontae Smiths and the A.J. Browns of the world are a little down the totem pole right now, which I think at this juncture of the season, I think they're okay with, just because, again, you have the opportunity to punch your ticket to get to the Super Bowl. And I think that those guys are going to be okay, especially, guys like Devontae Smith. I know A.J. Brown had some type of issue earlier this season. We talked about it a lot with the wide receivers this season, but I think at this point of the season, it's like, all right, man, let's just get the win. I don't care how we get it. I don't care if I had 1 catch, 2 catches for 25 yards. At the end of the day, if I see that we won this game and we're headed to the Super Bowl, I think that's all that's going to matter for this Eagles and hopefully your Commanders team for this game here. So it makes a lot of sense.
Sacrifice, like you said.
You got to.
You're just trying to win.
100%. All right, so that's 3 from Chris there. My last player prop, Chris, I'll give the people a little bit more from the AFC Championship game. I'm looking at Khalil Shakir in this matchup here, Chris, over 55.5 receiving yards. And the 2 postseason games thus far for Khalil Shakir for the Bills, 6 receptions, 6 targets, 61 receiving yards. And then last week against the Ravens, 6 receptions, 7 targets, and 67 receiving yards in that game. And, we talked about how these 2 teams did match up earlier this season between the Bills and the Chiefs. And in the game against the Chiefs, Khalil Shakir had 8 receptions on 12 targets for 70 receiving yards. And the thing I like about Khalil Shakir, if you watch his Bills team throughout the season, that he's a guy that could get it done in short yard situations, with this on slants, hook routes, whatever the case might be, curl routes, that he's able to make those catches and also get yards after catch. But he's also a guy that is a down the field threat for this team as well. He's had plenty of catches this season where he's had 25 plus longest receptions. So I do think, again, when it comes down to it, I think the one consistent guy on the receiving group for the Buffalo Bills is going to be Khalil Shakir. And it's not a big number that we're asking him to do here. I know he closed the season a little bit slow there. But again, like we mentioned, when it matters the most here, I think that Josh Allen is going to look for his guy. The fact that I love is that he's had 13 total targets in the 2 postseason games this year. He's converted those 13 targets to 12 catches, and like I mentioned, 60 plus receiving yards in each of the 2 games here. So I think this could be one of the higher scoring game between the Bills and the Chiefs, and I think the yardage will be there. So I think Allen will look for Shakir here. I expect the target to be there for him as well. Dating back, Chris, last point here, to the regular season, Khalil Shakir has had at least 6 targets gone his way since October 20th when they played Tennessee. So that's about a 10-game sample there. So if you want to look at the receptions to go over, I couldn't talk you off of that, but I do like the yardage over 55.5 for one Khalil Shakir of the Buffalo Bills, Chris.
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out to me, is like you said, anytime we're betting, whether we're doing an NBA Propcast or you're doing MLB or we're doing football, NFL like we're doing now, you look for that consistency. And the one thing that sticks out to me is what you mentioned, is the consistency, right? You mentioned 7 targets, 6 catches, 6 targets, 6 catches, 6 targets, 3 catches, 6 targets, 6 catches, 7 targets, 6 catches, 8 targets, 7 targets, 12 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets. Those are his last 10 games. So if he's going to get those many targets, he's going to convert them at that rate. At that point, you're really just playing the percentages then. Because like you said, big play, wide receiver, also not afraid to go, take the short route as well. And the other thing that's really interesting to mention is just the target share. He is number 1 on this team, in front of Coleman, in front of Kincaid, 20.2% target share for Mr. Shakir, which to me just proves how much Josh Allen really relies on him and the chemistry and connection that they have in just their first year together.
Yeah, and again, in this game in particular, we talked a lot about throughout the season how tight ends have had a lot of success against the Chiefs, right? And I think that Jay pointing out in the chat there that is Amari the fourth wide receiver right now as it stands, and I think that might be true here just because they've been able to utilize James Cook in the running game, like I mentioned, Khalil Shakir numbers, the tight ends as well. So, like we talked about with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, that there's only one football out there, unfortunately, for some of these guys, and somebody has to take a back seat. And at least for this game right now, I think that is going to be Amari Cooper to answer Jake's question there. So, yeah. All right. So that's 3 player props each from myself and Chris. Let's get into some honorable mentions here, Chris, and then we'll get into touchdown scores. Anything you're looking at getting to the window with or having a hard time pressing the confirm button?
Yes, there is. And I don't want to press the confirm button, because I don't want it to happen. But I'm looking at Mr. Saquon Barkley. I'm looking at Saquon, I think he gave this out last week, and it's just an absolute cash cow, man. Longest rush attempt to go up and over. I think they did boost his number up. I can't remember if it was 22 and a half, but it's 23 and a half this week. He's coming off a game. Yeah, he's coming off a game where he had a 78-yard rush. If you know anything about football this year, if you see a green jersey taken off, most likely it's Saquon waving to the people that, are behind him. And he's just going like pretty much at will. He has, finished right on the hook, in a couple of his last 10 games. He had a 22-yard 22-yard rush against Pittsburgh 5 weeks ago and a 23-yard rush against the Dallas Cowboys 3 weeks ago. But outside of that, man, he has, a long rush against my Commanders of 39 yards and 72 and 78 and 68 and 25. So I know it's it's getting a little taxing, but Saquon is bound to break one. If my Commanders have given up last week, it was Knuckles and Shadow, or whoever you want to call them, Tails and Knuckles. Those guys sitting at home on the couch this week. One of them had a longest rush that was 60+ yards, and we gave it up to Tampa Bay. I think it was not as big of a play, but at least a 20-yarder or close to a 20-yarder in that game as well. And we know what Saquon can do, man. So that's what I had on the short list. Like I said, I don't even want to push the confirm button, but if I had to add anything for honorable mention, it would just be Saquon to go up and over. Just thinking that, like I said, the carries will be there. He's averaging 24 rush attempts over his last 4 games, which is absolutely insane. You would just think that he would break one of them for longer than 23 and a half yards. So that's really the only thing I even had on my short list. If I just wanted to get your thoughts on him, potentially Kelsey over his receptions, because playoff Kelsey, happens to be a thing. So those two are my thought process. What do you think about those? And then what did you have on your list?
I think it also to the fact that you could hand it off to Saquon, knowing that if the Eagles win this game, you have about 2 weeks off, and that if you need to, drive him into the ground, you can.
Whatever it takes. It takes.
Because right now it's just like you're surviving, I don't think surviving, like you just need to win the game. And how do you do it? Again, it's been Saquon Barkley all season long for this Eagles team. Wishing it was on the Commanders is Saquon Barkley. But yeah, look, again, I talked about this last week, right? And again, they brought him over here for a reason. You have one of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive line. I know the Lions are in that conversation as well. But when he's beyond this offensive line, he's going to do damage. And we've seen that. He's an MVP finalist for a reason. Yes, running backs typically don't win. It's a quarterback award, but we know that he's going to end up winning Offensive Player of the Year more than likely is Saquon Barkley. So, Giants fans, I'm sorry, but again, I would just turn around, hand the ball off to Saquon, let him do his thing, let him drive you to the Super Bowl if he's going to be able to produce in this game. Kelsey is the one that I wanted to mention for honorable mentions here, Chris. I know we only give out 3 here, but I did play his over on his yardage. It was at 69.5. He's gone over this number in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 straight playoff games for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think we talked about this last week, that I think when it comes down to it for Patrick Mahomes, he's going to look for his guy, and that's Travis Kelce. And he's had a lot of success in his career as well against the Buffalo Bills, 3 career games against the Bills. Yardage-wise in those games, Chris, 75, 96, and 118. I think the receptions are probably at 6.5, maybe. Let me double check here for Kelce. 6.5 is a number right now, but I do like the yardage. If he gets 7 catches, I feel like he'll more than likely have 70 plus receiving yards in this game here. So I did play that. And then the other one I was looking at, I got burned by it last week, Chris, was Isaiah Pacheco to go under on his rushing yards. It feels like him and Kareem Hunt are splitting the carries now, at least the snap counts as well. And I think it was the second half of the game last week against the Texans where I saw Kareem Hunt and they're a little bit more than Isaiah Pacheco. So don't want to speculate that he's still dealing with some type of injury is Isaiah Pacheco, but it just seems like they're relying a little bit more on Kareem Hunt than what I anticipated in the game last week. So the number right now for Isaiah Pacheco on his rushing yards is sitting at 32.5. I know last week it was around 40 some odd yards, but that was one I was looking at. And the last one I'll throw at you, Chris, Patrick Mahomes' longest rush attempt to go over 12.5 yards. I'm not going to play the total rushing yards because I've said this story many a times that I've gotten burned when he takes those knees because he, for whatever reason, wants to go 3-4 yards back, and that's where the rushing yard prop for him goes to die. But we have seen multiple times where he can break out those big runs, whether it's down the sideline or right down the middle of the defense. Patrick Mahomes over 12.5 longest rush attempt, Chris.
Yeah, I like it. I like that a lot. You know, like you said, big time player make big time plays in big time games. And if we saw something that was a little, uncharacteristic, like Patrick Mahomes' really long rush, it would not surprise me at all. For him to be able to, pull out those wheels and try to take off in this one. So I would be with you before I'd be against you. The other thing about Patrick Mahomes taking those knees, is he always finds a way to be on the side where you can take the knees. He always finds a way, yeah. Right? Like if you thought that Buffalo was going to win the game, you said, man, maybe, he's not going to get a chance to nail this time, and I could just take the full rushing yard. So couldn't talk you over that one at all. Really wasn't too deep into the running back market, with Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. So I don't really have any burning thoughts on that one. And then you had Kelce, which we absolutely agree on. Kelce, playoff Kelce is a thing. I'm just glad he waited until the postseason, so his regular season under could cash for me. Real quick before we get to touchdown scores, any thoughts on James Cook? I was looking at his rushing yards, his receiving. Like, is it an over? Is it an under? Is the market about right? What are we thinking about James Cook this week?
So I'm going to go back to last week when the Texans played the Chiefs. And I was in the camp of thinking Joe Mixon goes under on his rushing yards, but he had 18 carries for 88 yards last weekend. James Cook has actually been pretty good this postseason for the Buffalo Bills. 17 for 67 last week. They ran him 23 times for 120 yards. Against the Denver Broncos. So my mindset, Chris, and I'll get your thoughts on this as well, kind of go back and forth here, is what is the actual game plan for the Buffalo Bills, right? Do you go point for point, or do you have these long sustained drives and keep Mahomes off the field? Because number one, like I mentioned, and a lot of the reasons why I do like Josh Allen to go over on his rush attempts is that, when it gets down to those third and 2 situations, third and short, fourth and short, that's where they extend those drives and, you're running the football tick, tick, tick. I know the numbers don't back up James Cook's numbers for rushing yards or attempts during the regular season because he hasn't really produced a lot, but it just feels like that he's found some type of groove here over these 2 games. And the one game last year where he did play against his Chiefs team, 18 carries for 61 yards. So I would look at the rush attempts here as well to go over, Chris. I know it's a little counterintuitive or kind of going up against what I like for Josh Allen in this game here as well. But I think James Cook is going to have to be a part of the plan here for the Buffalo Bills. His rush attempts are sitting at 13.5. That feels a little bit low to me. The yardage, I think I saw it at 55.5 earlier this week. Let me just double check that number because I didn't go back and look at it. It's at 56.5 now. So I think he's going to have to be a part of the game here for the Buffalo Bills. So I would look more towards the rushing attempts to go over. Chris, answer your question.
Yeah, it just feels like they play so fast, Munaf, that it's hard for me to take an under. And I'm always looking for under. Always looking for under. But right. I'm with you. I don't think I could get there with the under, even though I know that historically this Chiefs defense can really, really tighten up in the playoffs. Don't think I could get there, So I lean with you. I feel like the books slightly mispriced this, but like you said, it's all going to be, dependent upon game plan. Like you said, do you want the long, methodical, slow drives, or do you want to, score as many points as you possibly can, which is typically what, this Buffalo Bills offense does. They go fly up and down the field. They move at a very fast pace. So you see a bunch of snaps, bunch of handoffs, bunch of yards for Josh Allen, bunch of rush attempts for Josh Allen. So a bunch of yards for Secure, a bunch of targets for Secure. So, yeah, I think I'll stay on the sideline with that one, and just lean with you to the over there.
All right, before we get over to touchdown scores for the conference championship games, let me tell everyone about our good old friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems, NFL, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Stay tuned at the end of the episodes. Chris and I will put together our Underdog Fantasy entry for the championship games. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure that promo code MACHINE. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered back sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build a model for you. If the NFL playoffs haven't been going your way so far, Rhythm will help you turn things around. With 3 games left, the 3 best of the season, Rhythm's AI-powered back predictions for prop bets and game lines will set you up for success through the Super Bowl. NFL picks, NFL props, college football, and NBA. Rhythm has it all. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Chris, let's get into touchdown scores here for conference championship games. Who do you like to find the end zone?
So we'll start off with Josh Allen. I don't think that's never a bad place to start. You mentioned his rush attempts going over him. I think he finds his way into the end zone at least once in this game against Kansas City. It's really predicated on just the MVP caliber type year that he's having. Like, it's really, really difficult for me to see Josh Allen not finding the end zone one time. So, a scramble, him breaking, a long one, whatever the case might be. I just feel like Josh Allen's going to find the end zone. Also liking Scary Terry, plus 140, 3 straight games with a touchdown in 7 of his last 8 games, including 2 multi-touchdown games. And one of those happened to come against the Philadelphia Eagles. So like Scary Terry to find the end zone. Same game, I think a look at Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has been slowly but surely and very, very quietly really asserting himself in this offense towards the end of the season. If you can get him at plus 300 right now, you can call it I don't even know how much of a revenge game you want to call it. But, of course, he, used to play for this Philadelphia team. I'm pretty sure he's going to have a team, ready to go. And he's just been a super reliable target. It feels like him and Daniels have a really good chemistry. So, like those 3, Josh Allen, Scary Terry, and Zach Ertz. And then, how difficult is it to fade Travis Kelce right now? You say playoffs, and he's like, hold on, what? All right, cool. Let me put my, get my facial hair right, and put my helmet on. I'll wake up and I'll go play some football. Back-to-back games with touchdown, which is why I think we're only getting a plus 120. Yep. But we know when the rubber hit the road, we know who Patrick Mahomes is going to be looking for. The guy had 8 targets last week. Nobody else had. Well, Xavier Worthy had 6, but that was pretty much it. So, there's just a level of comfortability being 7 straight AFC Championship games. So yeah, those are the 4 ways that I would be looking. Zach Ertz, Mr. Kelsey, Scary Terry, and then Josh Allen minus 110.
Yeah, I agree with you on Josh Allen and Kelsey there. I'm not going to regurgitate that. I think Saquon 2+ touchdowns if you want to do that, plus 255. I know his anytime touchdowns hovering around minus 220 to minus 240. I like your Scary Terry look. Austin Eckler plus 275. I think that, again, if he gets down to the red zone, maybe gets a screen pass, gets it into the end zone. I believe he did have one earlier in the playoffs this season. Or sorry, I should over the last 2 games there. And you mentioned Zach Ertz as well. That was when I was on last week. Got to the end zone for us there. So I think we're pretty much in lockstep on those touchdown scores for this week. All right, Chris, let's wrap it up with our best bets for conference championship. I'll let you lead off, man. What do you got for your best bet?
Let's go. Let's go Hurts, man. We'll go Hurts. We'll go under his 24.5 pass attempts. Talked about it ad nauseum at the beginning of the show. But just something that he's only cashed. At the beginning of the season, I think he went over this number in 3 of his 4 games. And the Eagles said, you know what? We got to start handing the ball off a little bit more. Since then, his last 12, he's stayed under this number in 10 of his last 12 games. So 84% hit rate for Mr. Jalen Hurts to stay under 25 pass attempts here. So Jalen Hurts under 24.5 pass attempts here, best bet for this week.
There we go. All right, best bet for me. I like Josh Allen this week, man. This is where it matters the most for him. You want to get that monkey off of the back. Trust yourself. You've done well statistically, I should say. Against the Chiefs. I know the defense have let you down a little bit, but Allen has done fantastic against the Chiefs here. So I'll continue riding the rush attempts to go over 9.5 here for Josh Allen. And it seems like it's America is rooting for the Buffalo Bills, and only the Chiefs fans are rooting for the Chiefs here in this game here. So Josh Allen over 9.5 rush attempts for my best bet for this episode. And before we wrap it up, we'll put together our Underdog Fantasy entry here. Again, like I mentioned, get over there, underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code MACHINE, 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. They have, again, all these great profit boosts going on as well. So again, get over there, use that promo code MACHINE. First-time account users will get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. All right, Chris, so I'll go ahead and put together the entry. We'll go with Hurts on the lower pass attempts. We'll go 24.5. We'll go with Josh Allen. Higher 9.5 rush attempts. And I think we both agreed on Eckler this week. So let me see if they have the longest rush reception to go higher. Yep, they got it. So beautiful. Make it easy for ourselves there. All right. So this week we're going to go with Jalen Hurts, lower 24.5 pass attempts. Josh Allen, higher rush, 9.5 rush attempts. And we'll go Austin Eckler, longest rush reception, I should say. Higher 12.5. Austin Eckler, higher 12.5 longest reception this week. For our entry there, it'll be a 6x entry. So if all 3 of those end up being correct, you'll get a return of 6x. For every $10 that you do put in, you'll get a return of $60, courtesy of Underdog Fantasy. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition for the Propcast. Definitely looking forward to the games this weekend. May or may not hear from Chris if the Commanders do end up punching their ticket to the Super Bowl. We'll give them the week off to celebrate if the Commanders do get to the Super Bowl, but we'll run back to business the week following, leading up to Super Bowl week. But Chris, I'm going to give you the floor here. Give me your prediction for the game, and what is it going to take for the Commanders to pull off the upset to punch their ticket and to get to the Super Bowl? And I should add this. What is it going to take for Jaden Daniels to be the first rookie quarterback to win a conference championship game?
Man, it's going to start at the line of scrimmage, I really, really do. I think when I listen to myself back and I hear this, that's what I'm going to tell myself. Like, because I've already, of course, thought about how the game's going to go and what we need to do to make sure we win. We're gonna have to. I think I wouldn't say dominate, but we're gonna have to win the line of scrimmage. We know that the Eagles are a very physical team. We need to block Carter up front. We need all our offensive linemen to be the best versions of themselves, so that Jaden Davis can't have time, a little bit of time back there to make the right throws. He's I saw some stats that said that he's has the highest QBR of any rookie quarterback through however many games when he has been blitzed. So it's not like he's not making really good reads, but just like any other quarterback, he's a human at the end of the day. So when he drops back and he's being rushed, which we know Philly is going to try to put some pressure on him, it can lead to mistakes, and he hasn't made many, especially when we needed him not to. But I think that's what it's going to come down to. Can the Commanders' defense slow down Saquon, right? And how do you go about doing that? Do you stack the box? Does Saquon just have an off day? Whatever the case might be. Can we win the turnover battle? So those are the three things for me. If you got to control the line of scrimmage, you can't be getting into these second and third down situations that are 3rd and 14, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 9. You want to try to move the ball as much as you can. Keep your defense off the field so that they can be fresh and not just be absolutely dominated by Saquon. So I think if they can limit turnovers, win the line of scrimmage, and and contain Saquon, and I know it's a lot harder said than done.
Oh yeah.
But those are the three keys to success for myself. We gotta control the turnovers, dominate the line of scrimmage, or win the line of scrimmage, and then try our best to make sure Saquon doesn't have 379 yards on 37 carries. We might have a chance here,
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun game. I'm hoping it's a little bit more competitive than the spread is indicating. I mean, it's a 6-point spread there, but again, these Commanders have been playing some great football, and it's been led by Jaden Daniels. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to the Commanders front office. I mentioned this last week of how they've surrounded him with veterans, the proper weapons, and having a head coach in Dan Quinn that has been great defensively. I think this is going to get better, but I think what hasn't been talked about is how great Cliff Kingsbury has been calling plays here for the Washington Commanders there. So hopefully we are back next week talking about Commanders in the Super Bowl. But again, if they're able to, I think that's going to be the key as well, as you mentioned, is that how much can you limit Saquon in this game? And I think that, it'll be interesting to see that if they do stack the box against Saquon and force Jalen Hurts to throw, maybe there's a chance, but again, it's still, even if you try to stack the box against him, he still finds ways behind that offensive line. So, hopefully it's a fun game. Hopefully you're not sweating too much about it, Chris, but wishing you and the Commanders the best of luck this weekend, and hopefully they do get to the Super Bowl. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Propcast. Make sure you guys follow Chris on the Twitter machine at ChrisBeCappinn. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Make sure you also guys subscribe to the Propcast here on YouTube if you are watching live. And if you are the audio version, do us a huge favor. Please, please, please leave us a rating and review. Hopefully it's a 5-star and you have some nice things to say about at least Chris, if not for myself, but at least say something nice about Chris on the Propcast. We'll figure out the Super Bowl schedule in the next week or so. Maybe we'll do like 2 separate episodes, like game props and player props. I think that's how we did it last year. Just have some fun with it. I know we have those crazy props that do come about over the Super Bowl. So we'll figure it out, and then we'll be back for NBA regularly as the NFL season winds down here. So a little bit more regular with the NBA. So I'll promise you guys that much as well. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.